The hardest thing about explaining PTSD to anybody is it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that so many people think that PTSD is only for first responders and it's only for military, and that's not the case. Like shit, I have PTSD, and people are always like, "Oh, I have a shaved head, so you were military, weren't you? And or are you a cop?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm none of that." I mean, PTSD is not just for them. It's for anybody who's encompassed a traumatic experience in their life, whether it's violence, whether it's abuse. It can be an event that has enough trauma in it that it shocks your system. And trying to explain what PTSD is difficult too, because so many people misuse the word trigger. I'm triggered. You said something that triggered me. Really? Like, shut the fuck up. Like, if you're offended, you're offended. To really truly trigger somebody, I mean, there's a lot that kind of goes into it. I've been triggered off of words before, but it takes a lot of those words to actually break through those barriers to the point that I can actually say, fuck, okay, yeah, this has gotten to me. I'm starting to have the flashbacks. I'm starting to have the terrors. I'm starting to get frozen. I can feel the temperature in my face changing. I can feel fighting back the tears. I'm starting to jumble my words. That's what happens when it really starts to hit into my brain. And I lose track with all reality and almost disassociate in a sense where I feel like I'm not even in my body. I'm reliving this whole experience again that I just went through. My latest PTSD, because I went to a doctor, not through Google or any of that shit where people are like, oh, I have PTSD because I looked it up online. No, it doesn't work that way. Google's not a doctor. I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a counselor. I've spent a lot of times with both, though. The PTSD flashbacks for me, though, my trigger is the smell of blood. The reason it's the smell of blood is my dad took his own life. And when he did it in an automobile, and there was blood in there. And I went up with my sister-in-law to get the car because my mom wanted the car back. It was a Cadillac. And when I got in there, it had sat for a couple days because the police had impounded it. And that smell, there's an iron smell to blood. That smell just engulfed my nose. Like talking about it right now, I can visually see like picking up some of the stuff off of the floor of my dad's car, some of the rings and necklace off the floor. I can see the blood. I can smell it. It was sunny outside. The brown interior of the car, the silence that was around us when we were going through it. I mean, I'm starting to even shake a little bit talking about it because that's what PTSD is, and people don't understand that. And triggers for everybody are different. Nobody is responsible for stepping over your triggers to triggering you or to bringing you a PTSD flashback. They're not. It's not their responsibility if you haven't told them. Communication, if you have PTSD, and setting up those healthy boundaries is so fucking important, because if you don't have the boundaries there, you're gonna have them left and right. And you're gonna blame everyone around you. You're gonna be fucking upset and it's all their fault. And no. That's part of communication and healthy boundaries, especially if you have PTSD. That's why they have those signs that for military to put out in the front yard during the 4th of July of, hey, a vet lives here that struggles with PTSD. Be careful with the noises. It literally sends you back to that moment. And you don't realize what's going on around you. You're living that moment again, and it's this constant replay of a nightmare. And it's one of the scary, like, I have fucking goosebumps right now talking about it, because now all my brain can think about is that. And how you get out of it is, like, for me, I have to write it out, and I use grounding techniques. The breathing actually helps me. The touching actually helps me to bring me out of my brain on that one. And the reason why it's different than an anxiety attack, it's different than a panic attack. It's getting my brain to focus on even doing a YouTube video over what I was just talking about and getting trapped into that memory. PTSD is something that's not to joke about. And a lot of times we don't understand the different types of PTSD and how to treat them, because there's CPTSD and there is PTSD. There's two different types, and there's even treatment for it. EMDR is the most effective treatment. It was designed for soldiers. And it's a treatment that you can go through. It has a 77% effective ratio of removing those triggers and removing the night terrors, the sweats, the panic that you're going through. One of the biggest things, though, I have found that helped me with my PTSD is sharing about it, like sharing the shit. Like, it's hard to share, but the more that I share it, the more that the nightmare, the more that the moment doesn't own me anymore. The more that I have control over it, and I have control over my thoughts, because I've shared it enough that I almost become a little bit more comfortable with it, where it's not as strong as it was before. I mean, going back to even to the site of where this was, because it was at my brother's house, that still actually makes me shake. It still brings it back, but talking about it doesn't go to the extreme that it once did. PTSD, that traumatic experience, we can't leave it. And it's not fucking letting go of the past. It's not like, oh, just let go of the memory and replace it with happy memories. Fuck that. It's trying to get the past to let go of you. It's trying to let those thoughts that are in your brain, that memory in your brain that's burned in there, to remove itself and to let go of you and to own it, so that you know that it's not controlling your life, it's not controlling your actions and what you're going through. It's so important to get therapy for it, because and just to be able to share or journal about it, because otherwise you're living that moment nonstop, and it's not like a happy moment. It's a fucked up moment in our life that we can't escape, and it sucks. You're living a nightmare daily, and people don't get that. And then you have these other people that are walking around, oh, I'm triggered by this. Oh, I'm triggered by this. Shut the fuck up. You're not, if you're offended, you're offended. I mean, you don't even know now what fucking triggers somebody, because everyone uses the goddamn word. And it sucks. And I don't mean to even say that, because I'm sure somebody got offended by me saying that, but that's reality. You know, to share it how it is and what it really is. I have people that reach out to me all the time, and it's funny because they'll even say, well, why do you swear so much? And why do you cuss? Because it's part of my language. I'm going to be real. I'm going to share what reality is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to bullshit it. Because the more that we don't talk about the realness of it, the more that others who are struggling with PTSD are struggling with these night terrors and the nightmares and the shaking and the breaking down and having it turn almost into a panic attack where you can't breathe and you're gasping for fucking air and you're living this moment of terror, you know, won't speak about it, and they won't be able to own it because they're so afraid to. It's not the easiest thing to talk about. It's the hardest thing out there I've found to fucking talk about. It's hard to talk about bad shit like this. And people also don't know how to react. They're just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We don't want you to be sorry for us. We're not saying it for empathy or for sympathy. We're sharing so maybe that you can understand. You know, it's sharing that what we're saying and how we're feeling, you understand. I mean, when you're going through a flashback, you don't want anyone touching you. You don't want anyone coming in your safety bubble, because you're fighting with all of your might to get out of that fucking moment and into reality. I mean, that's why, I mean, for me, I mean, it was so hard not to relapse onto alcohol and cocaine, because I could numb that. And because being an addict, I was so obsessed with using coke and drinking alcohol that it would turn my obsession into that and away from what I'd been through. I mean, it's difficult. I can tell you this. I mean, you can PTSD from just seeing, you know, somebody's dead body who you loved even at a funeral. I mean, there's different things out there that fuck you up, and it's different for everyone. You know, a kid that was raped or a kid that was beaten or a kid that was bullied. I mean, that shit is traumatic experiences. And again, I don't diagnose anyone. I have no right to, but I have a right to be able to share, to hopefully bring some awareness to somebody out there going, fuck, what I'm doing right now could maybe fuck somebody up. It might fuck their life up some. And do you really want that fucking weight? I mean, if you want to help with when it comes to a lot of the PTSD out there, when it comes to a lot of the depression out there, anxiety out there, don't be a fucking asshole to people online in real life. Kindness. You don't know what other people are going through. You don't know if somebody's going through one of those tears or one of those flashbacks that they're waking up at night in a cold sweat and they can't get that thought out of their brain, and now it's dark and they're reliving that terror even more, and they're fucking crying and they're bawling their eyes out and they're sweating and they're shaking and you're almost rocking yourself for comfort of like, please stop, please stop, please stop. I mean, that is PTSD. It's not a joke. It's not something that you use as a label of, hey, I got PTSD. Nobody wants fucking PTSD. I mean, it is not, it's not something that you just like, hey, I want that. I want this badge on my fucking, chest. No. But it's reality of life, and it does happen. And you don't know who around you has PTSD. So if somebody has PTSD or they're having a lot of anxiety attacks, even ask them like what's bringing these on, because there's usually a trigger behind it. And it's not just words. A lot of times it's sounds. A lot of times it's smells. A lot of times it's touch. I mean, I use a weighted blanket for my anxiety when my anxiety starts to get out of control. If you had a sexual traumatic experience where you were raped or abused as a child or being held down, or even as an adult, a weighted blanket can trigger those memories. So you never know what it might be. The words that I hear people use is one of the most overused and non-triggering events and that can happen. I found it was more of an environment that sparks those PTSD triggers. Being alone, sleeping, and your dreams go there. Slamming of doors, yelling or screaming, watching somebody get hit. That type of stuff, visual, hearing, all your other senses is what I've noticed will really bring on, a PTSD episode. It's not, oh, you said something that offended me, I'm triggered, I struggle with this. It's not a badge of honor. It's not a badge to manipulate people. It's something that you're fighting through. So if you really want to help people out that have PTSD, stop using the fucking word if you don't have PTSD. And don't go on to Google and say, oh, I have PTSD. Well, did you ever go to a doctor and get diagnosed? Are you trying any kind of treatment? Have you ever even seen a therapist? And no, I haven't seen any of that. I went online and I Googled it. Stop right there. Like, let's add more to the fucking stigma of it. I mean, that's why people only think that first responders still and military still struggle with this. God forbid you have a shaved head and a goatee and you're tall and you're built a little bit, that you obviously were former military, you have tattoos, you're probably a cop. No, none of that. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't discriminate who you are. It's a moment that happens in your life that now is going to try and trap the fuck out of you and not let go. It's like walking into a bear trap, and that motherfucker ain't letting go, and it's doing everything you can to open that up, to let go, to move on, to move through it. And it takes support. It takes a lot of support to get through it. It takes a lot of sharing to get through it. It takes a lot. And is it ever going to go away? I don't know. It's not my place to say if it will or not. It's not my place. But I can say this, that it does get better. It doesn't hit as hard. It's not quite as scary. That you can fight through it a lot easier. And you avoid the triggers. I mean, I avoid blood at all costs. People will be like, oh, I don't want to trigger you because you said it's blood and I don't want to show you the... Visual does nothing for me. Let's face it, we live in a pretty violent society already where it's on TV, it's on all that. No, it's that smell. It's that iron smell. And it freaks me out because I know what that bitterness smell is in my nose. And I'm afraid of something else having that smell and bringing it on for me. That's one of my biggest fears still with PTSD. I know how to avoid blood, but what happens if I ever catch another smell that's similar to it that brings it back? But it's a fight. And I know that it can be won. And I know that it's worth fighting through it, not letting it capture me and keep dragging me to the past. Just know that there's hope for you out there. That does get better. It's fucking work, but it gets better. Most of all, you fucking matter. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't. My channel's all about mental health, mental illness. I started a nonprofit, and it's letting you know that you're fucking amazing, letting you know that you're not going through life alone. Down below, I even have affiliate links for all the different tools that I use when it comes to depression, when it comes to anxiety. I have a link down below for BetterHelp if you need online therapy. It's letting you know that you fucking matter, that you're a BAMF, that you're a badass motherfucker that's made it through 100% of your worst days to make it through 2 today. That you've overcome every obstacle in life and that you're not alone. Because let's face it, when we're fucking struggling up here, we feel alone. And you're not. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're beautiful. You're smart. You're gorgeous. Most of all, you got this. Hit that like and subscribe button. Hit comment down below. Make people aware of what PTSD is, not just what the word is or who's supposed to have it. Let's do this together. We got this.